Mike, thanks for coming on. The Stick to Sports crew, it's a tough argument to make right now, isn't it? It's kind of tough.
I don't, when I hear stuff like that from people, like you said, with 0 followers and not having their name attached to something like that, those are the same people that then, when they say stick to sports, are the ones that complain about athletes that have no personality because they show no opinion and don't talk about anything other than the sport that they play or the sport that's out there. And I usually refer to people like that as hypocrites. And listen, there are times when, talking about sports 24/7 is what we're supposed to do, but it's not all the time. It's not 24/7. And I would love to say that I'm sorry that you don't like having an uncomfortable conversation, but I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry that we have to have uncomfortable conversations, because from uncomfortable conversations come change. And if we're going to get to a place where we are all, as human beings, trying to be on the same team and find common ground and peaceful existence between one another, then uncomfortable conversations have to be had about uncomfortable situations. And for anyone to try and put their head in the sand and say, I don't want to talk about that, I don't want to hear about that, and put your fingers in your ear and say, la, 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 guess what? It doesn't go away and it doesn't change. One of the reasons that we've gotten to the place that we've gotten to is because people are tired of being pushed to the side when you hear things like, well, we'll sit down and have a conversation about that. Let's sit down and talk, but let's keep order. And what that means is we're going to keep things the way that they are in order to just quell you. And so times like these, you look out and what you should feel is empathy for our species, to question, why has it come to that? Why did we need to get to this point? Especially, coming from America and being a man who's half black himself and have had plenty of what I would call uncomfortable, what others would call scary moments in dealing with some police. Seeing things like this happen over and over again, you get to a point where you say, when do I get to stop having to turn the other cheek? Even though I know in my heart that is wrong in a way as well. And so to hear people say, because of the business that we're in, just stick to talking to sports is like having someone say to LeBron James, shut up and dribble. Mm-hmm. Like, as a human being, we're all supposed to be able to talk about things that affect other human beings and things that affect us as a society. So don't devalue who we all are and what we need to talk about because it makes you uncomfortable. And if it does make you that uncomfortable, then that is definitely a conversation then that you need to have, because it's not going to go away.
Yeah, we had that conversation in the opening segment. Welcome to my uncomfort is what you're allowed to say. It's we've done a lot of talking in our careers, 20 years in the business. We've done a lot of listening in the last week, and one of the things that struck me as you were talking, Michael, was, listen, with the proliferation of media in all its many different forms right now, if you don't want to hear a dissenting voice, one that is different than yours right now in this world, you don't have to hear it, which is why Twitter becomes this powder keg, and why sports and the people who say stick to sports, why the sports conversation is so important, because that's a place where you may hear a voice that might be different from yours, and yet you still have something in common, and that is the love of sports. And that can be, listen,
and
go ahead.
the other beauty of sports is that it teaches you that sometimes losing is okay, that it hurts, it sucks, and you don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But your team doesn't go undefeated. And you know what? It's okay. You get another chance later. And by dividing yourself away and only hearing the things that you want to hear, then what happens is you divide yourself into a team that decides we win at all costs. And so you allow for things to start happening that shouldn't be happening. And the beauty of what sports gives us is the opportunity to cheer and love and root for our team, knowing that sometimes our team are going to gut wrench us, that things are going to happen in sports that aren't necessarily fair, that we're going to lose, but that we will get through them, and that it's still okay to love your team without necessarily hating the other team.
Right.
In a bad way. It's okay to say, I don't like that team, or we'll say playfully, I hate that team. You know, as an American football fan, I love the Philadelphia Eagles, and I tell people all the time I hate the Cowboys, but I don't actually mean that I hate the players on the Cowboys. I know some of the Cowboys, and, you know, I know players from other teams that I don't root for, and I don't wish them ill will, or I don't devalue them as human beings because they play for another team. And so I love the fact that that's one of the greatest lessons sports teaches us, is that you learn the most from losing, and that it doesn't take away from your team or your caring for your team.
Yeah.
And that sometimes in the big picture of things, you know, losing can be a way to learn, even though it's a lesson that you don't like to learn.
ESPN's Michael Collins here on Tim and Sid. Golf is his wheelhouse, but we haven't stuck to sports, and I don't mind that at all here in this interview. But Mike, before we do let you go, one of the reasons why we asked you to come on today, and we thank you for doing that, Tiger Woods put out a statement today.
Mm-hmm.
And part of there was a line in there, and you alluded to it a little bit in your comments already during our conversation, but there was a line in it that I found really interesting. He said, "We can make our points without burning the very neighborhoods that we live in." And I think I don't disagree with him, but I also think there comes a point where a strongly worded letter and turning over a coffee table are not the same thing. I think one gets a different reaction than the other. How did you take that statement from one of still the most popular athletes in the world?
So I don't necessarily agree with that line, and there's reasons why, but I'll start here. Number one, Tiger comes from a sport that had written into its bylaws that they would not allow African Americans to play. So he comes from a place and an understanding of what racism really is. Where he doesn't come from is a place that understands why people would feel the need to burn down where they are. And this is the hard thing that to try to explain to people that haven't come from a place like that. And that is, if I don't value myself as a human being, and I feel like the world doesn't value me as a human being, why the hell would I value a building, a TV, a thing? If I am not valued as a person, then you think that I'm going to care about burning down bricks and wood? Why would I? You think I value that? You think I value what you built? And so that's the difficulty in this for even someone like Tiger Woods. The other problem for someone as iconic as Tiger, and you have to remember too, when was the last time that both Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods came out and spoke on any social issues?
Great.
Never. It's never happened before. So for people to expect Tiger Woods to be the beacon of social issues is a ridiculous thing to think. It is a ridiculous thing to think that he should be the person that everyone turns to and goes, you know, hey, in times like this, Tiger, what should we do? Like that he's in a position that isn't necessarily fair to put him in, even though we still ask that of him. Should we expect it from him? I say no. I think it's great that he came out and commented on it. But I understand that you're asking someone who has never been in that position. He's not Muhammad Ali. He's not Jim Brown. He's not Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's not any of these people. And yet in a situation like this, we're expecting him to be that. And that's just not who he is. Now, what's the flip side of that? Can you imagine what the backlash would have been if Tiger would have came out with a statement and said, I'm fundamentally against the racism that we see. Get your pitchforks out and let's burn the whole thing down. Like, we could go the other extreme as well. And there would be arguments for and against that as well. Because when it comes down to it, like I said, when you're asked to turn the other cheek, at what point do you say, I'm not doing that anymore? I'm not going to believe you when you say to me, you know what? We need to just sit and talk about this. You said that the last time and the time before that and 5 times before that. So you think I'm going to keep watching all of these African-American men get killed and then nothing happened to the people that do that? And you think I'm going to keep believing you when you say we're going to sit down and talk this out? Yeah, nah. I'm not doing that no more. My mom, who's white and is sitting next to me as I'm doing this, brought up something that Malcolm X said back in 1964, and he gave a speech, and it's called By the Ballot or the Bullet. And I think that's the point we're at right now. And it's scary to think that. It's terrifying to think that. And I don't want to think that. We should be focusing on finding a way to love each other. And we are at a point right now where everyone is divided and picking teams. And regardless of if somebody on your team is doing something that is lying, cheating, stealing, or hurting someone else, because they're on your team, you're okay with it? Nah. That's why you're not going to hear me talk about, I know a lot of good cops. I know a lot of good human beings that put on uniforms.
Yeah.
I know a lot of them, men and women, good human beings that put on uniforms. But you know what?
Too.
In every police precinct, in every area of law enforcement out there, you know who the bad cops are. And if you're not saying or doing anything about them, then guess what? You're not a good cop. That doesn't mean that you're a terrible person. And that doesn't mean that I have hate you or despise anything about you. But I'm certainly not going to come out and be like, I know a lot of good cops. Nah, I know a lot of wonderful, amazing people that put a uniform on every single day and do the right thing every day. But there's a difference.
Listen, we're long time first times. It's a shame that it had to come in the middle of a global pandemic and some of the most honest and concerning racial conversation that this generation has seen. But we won't shy away from the conversation, and we appreciate you having it with us. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, man, I am really looking forward to the time where we can actually talk about some golf and some fun.
Yeah,
and just give back. When we talk about normalcy, it used to be about, man, when this pandemic is over, I'm hugging everybody and this is going to be great. And now it's just like, you know what? What we need to do, make sure that everyone stops saying, well, 2020 can't get any worse. Okay, well, that's got to stop immediately.
Yeah, that hasn't worked.
Thanks for having me on, fellas. I can't wait to talk again.
Take care, Mike.